Welcome to I Don't Work Here Lady. I got several wonderful stories today. One of them is probably a neckbeard in training with his enablest Karen mother, and the other two are wholesome. Oh dear God, wholesome? Yes, wholesome. I thought they were worth covering, so I hope you guys enjoy. Without further ado, here we go. I'm a waitress. Our restaurant strictly requires masks while indoors. The mask mandate honestly wasn't that helpful in corralling unruly customers, because they'd either argue that the mandate was not a law, so they won't follow it, or it was irrelevant, because they'd eventually be taking their mask off anyway when they eat the food, right? So they wouldn't follow it. But while the presence of a mandate doesn't help, the lack of mandate has made things way worse. People who previously wore masks now don't believe it's necessary for the health of others and themselves. But we still require masks, and we have a right to set mask wearing policy in the store. But what they don't understand, and what I'll reiterate for you now, private businesses can have any dress code they want. Ever go to a fancy restaurant that requires a suit jacket for men? Or a grocery store that requires shoes? Yeah, we're the freedom fighters there. Anyway, regardless of my opinion on masks, there's no need to argue it to me, because the owner makes those calls. My job is to enforce the decision, whether it be all customers have to wear face masks covering mouth and nose, or if all customers have to wear sleeveless denim vest. I'd have to enforce it. That's literally my job. Our in-house mask mandate at our restaurant remains firmly in place. I have spent my entire shift telling people to comply or leave, then telling them again, then a third time, then getting a larger, more physically intimidating line cook to tell them. By the end of the shift, I was a master of putting my hand up authoritatively and saying, "Sir, ma'am, it is your choice whether or not to wear a mask or face covering, just as it is our choice to serve you in a private business. So comply with our dress code or exit the premises." A few people called the police, or more likely, acted as if they did, but at no point did any real authorities bother us. After my shift ended, I was absolutely exhausted. I was ready to forget the whole anti-masker, COVID truthers, and just eat some banana cereal. I hit the supermarket on my way home, and this chain still required masks. As I approached the door, most people are maskless, but they stop short of the entrance and they put their mask on, which is no problem. The people directly next to me though, a mom with the classic Karen haircut and a teenage son approximately 15, I don't know, did not have one on. The mom actually did put on a tattered, ill-fitting surgical mask. She wasn't even wearing it correctly, but still, better than nothing. Her son, though, didn't break stride. He just kept heading into the store. His mom flagged him down and said, "Jeremy, put on the mask. It's policy," in a kind and quietly voice, as though she was trying not to anger him. And he said, "I thought we didn't have to do that bullshit anymore. I saw it on the news." His mom explained that the business could require masks, even if the state no longer did. At first, I was thinking, props to you. Your haircut is totally misleading. But her son couldn't just let it end at a nice note. He whined that he didn't bring his mask, and he didn't want to have to walk all the way back to the car, because there wasn't any Wi-Fi in the parking lot. So there's no way he's going to wait for her in the car. If he had a mask in the car, why would he have to wait? Just get the mask and come back. But that's irrelevant, because he didn't. His mom tried to think of a rebuttal, eyeing the policy no exceptions, but seemed too tired to generate one. So she just braced herself, and they headed into the store. The greeter stopped the son and said he needed a regulation face covering, but he ignored her, grunting, "I don't have one," and he just kept walking. The greeter called after him, but couldn't move very far from her spot, and eventually he was too deep into the aisle to notice. I found all of this offensive. but I was too exhausted from dealing with these guys professionally to take it on personally. I just went about finding the right colors of bananas and trying to get back to my car as quickly as I could. Fast forward to the deli counter. I had taken a ticket and was standing in line. Karen and her son were right nearby. Happily, several people were giving Karen's son the evil eye and keeping a healthy distance from him, but he couldn't have cared less, and neither could his mom. She was placing a long, elaborate deli order, and he was picking up lemons and putting them back. Her son was having a loud FaceTime conversation with his friend. He was expelling his air and his noisy chatter onto customers in every which direction. But I tried to put it out of my mind because I didn't have the bandwidth to deal with people like this one more time tonight. And that's when it happened. He coughed, maskless, in the direction of the lemons. As a matter of fact, directly onto the lemons. I was ready to say something, but thankfully, the deli worker noticed. And he called him out. "Who's coughing?" Looking all around and noticed the kid. "Hey son, you gotta wear a mask to be in here." Well, this little brat shrugged his shoulders, but the deli guy wasn't having it. He pulled out the corporate policy sheet. So the brat looked at his mom for support. She seemed genuinely embarrassed by her son, but not so much that she would hold him accountable for his dangerous choices. She hurriedly explained,
"Oh, he has a mask, but he left it in the car. We parked in the far lot."
The deli counter guy was persistent, saying, "I don't care where he left it. It is policy. Mask up or head out." He took a few assertive steps in the kid's direction, which I guess was too much for Karen to handle, because she threw herself between her son and the worker. There was still easily a 10-foot space between them. He was hardly chesting up to the kid, as Karen doubled down.
"The store isn't allowed to have that policy anymore. Didn't you see the governor's announcement? It was never a law anyway."
Well, that steamed the deli guy, but I guess since he saw the announcement, he wasn't sure what to make of it, and he didn't want to risk his job if he couldn't enforce the mask policy. He had a line piling up, so he couldn't argue with her all day, so he stepped back, but not before saying, Well, either way, you shouldn't need a law. It's a paragon of selfishness what you're doing. Son, my mother is dead of this disease. Dead in the ground. Never got to meet her granddaughter. She wasn't too much older than your mother. You should think about that." This brat unblinkingly laughed at this guy. Not chuckled, full-blown belly laughed. His mother pulled him away, saying that he was being rude, but she didn't make him apologize, let alone apologize herself. Well, I placed my order, told the guy how despicable the exchange was, and apologized for his loss. And that was that, so I'd hoped. I prayed that I'd be able to avoid them for the rest of my trip. But lo and behold, just as I was about to check out, I realized I was out of plastic wrap. I always have leftovers, so I needed to go back for the wrap. It didn't matter how close to the checkout I was. I doubled back, held my breath, no pun intended, and sure enough, the son-mother super spreaders were stationed at the end cap, having an argument with the clerk. As best as I can figure it, from the bits and pieces I picked up, customers were complaining about his coughing, just enough to motivate the manager to confront the family. The manager was physically intimidating, so I guess he was the staff's go-to guy for confrontation, but it became immediately apparent he did not have the personality for conflict. He was a human teddy bear. He was like 6'5", 300 pounds. He had, to his credit, managed to get Karen's cart away from her. He was holding it to the side, so they couldn't continue shopping until her son put a mask on.
"Please don't yell at me. I don't understand when you're yelling."
Karen was going off on Chet about the laws he had broken, the discrimination he was enacting against her poor son, how the entire store has been harassing a minor child since they entered, and the corporate office would hear about this, and he'd be out of the job, and no one was hiring right now, so he better be careful. Well, Chet seemed genuinely surprised, and he tried, and failed, to communicate with Karen gently, assuring her,
Trying to help you, actually, ma'am. I don't want to harass anyone. I want to work this out. The situation at hand, though, is that you cannot continue to shop here until your son conforms to our corporate masking policy for the well-being of the community we serve here, all right? Help me help you.
Meanwhile, Karen was preaching, screeching, the innocence of her bratty kid. At the same time, her kid was berating her, telling her that she was embarrassing him and how ineffective she was, and that she was so stupid for wasting her time arguing with these people. He wanted to just ignore them and keep shopping. He was a toothpick, and Chet was a redwood. So I don't know in what universe he thought he'd ignore the situation and continue with his business, but oh well. Anyways, at this stage, I realized it was disrespectful to just sit back and watch this spectacle. I would either have to speak up or just move on with my shopping. Maybe this was the straw that broke the camel's back. After the day I had at work, maybe I was just on autopilot, or maybe I felt sympathy for Chet, probably a mixture of all three, but my mask-enforcing persona roared to life. Luckily, I was still wearing my work outfit, including my name tag, or this might not have worked. I stormed over with the most authoritative manager of manager swagger, and I said, "Excuse me, you're creating a disturbance. Do we have a problem here?" Poor Chet started to try to explain and remove me from the situation, thinking I was a concerned customer who was upset by the disruption of the altercation, or worse, a third member of the Karen party. But I just fell into my script, which I had down cold at this point, reciting, "Sir, ma'am, you have a choice as to whether you'd like to wear a mask or not. And as this is a private business, we have a choice as to have a dress code we'd like to set for our customers. You have two options as to how this proceeds from here." Karen just keeps talking over me, while her son is complaining about her stop engaging with us and to keep shopping, including this gem of a line.
They're literally just rent-a-cops. They're the can-stacking people. Just ignore them.
So I went into phase 2 of the script.
All right, you have made your choice. You've made your choice not to partake of our services. And we have, in turn, have made our choice not to service you. Please leave now, or you will be escorted out. If you leave on your own volition, you'll be welcome back, if you're dressed appropriately. If escorted out, a permanent ban will be issued. Please note, we have a clear view of your face on the CCTV right now, seeing that you are clearly not wearing a mask."
Well, that made that little brat's head explode. He started shouting obscenities, and I flatly stated,
"My colleague is contacting security."
getting edgier as he escalated, because A, I made the assumption that the store had security, but it was dawning on me that I had no clue whether they did or not, and B, this brat was physically larger than me. So I thought back to the stories of the store workers getting attacked or even killed by anti-maskers for trying to enforce policies. For a minute, I wondered if I should have kept my nose out of it. But Karen stepped up to the plate and finally made the right decision. Better late than never. She started pulling her son towards the door, saying,
"I can't get banned from here. This store is easily closest to the house. Come on, come on."
He resisted at first, even intentionally pushing over an end cap display in rage, to which Chet offered the strong words of,
"Hey, that was really unnecessary."
When he started destroying property, Karen left him to face security on his own, and she made a beeline for her car. After about 15 seconds of kicking more stuff over, this little brat realized that he was standing alone on his own 2 feet without mommy there to protect him, and that he was going to have to face some real-world consequences. Well, he absolutely broke down. A wave of terror washed over him, and just as quickly as he had flown into a rage, he bolted for the exit. Chet was so casual about this. He turned to me and asked,
"You don't work here, do you? I've never seen you before."
I explained that I've been dealing with this kind of stuff at work, and I felt obligated to step in as a result. And he sincerely thanked me, even offered me coupons. But he said, while he appreciated the thought, next time I shouldn't get involved. He warned that some of the anti-maskers have been wholly unstable, hitting or spitting at employees, and they do have a usual security guard, but he was out for the day because of an injury that was inflicted on him by an anti-masker. It's only because he was out that they sent the regular store workers to confront the kid. He sighed and said,
"Oh, this is mostly what I've been doing today. I don't know if it's because I have a calm demeanor, but either way, I'm always the one they send to deal with these crazies."
I was so distracted by this, I didn't even remember to get my plastic wrap. I just checked out and headed home. So stay safe out there. Please wear your mask. Keep your distance. Get the vaccine. Watch out for one another. We'll be through the other side soon. Not as soon as we could, thanks to people like Karen and her son, but soon. Last night, I was at our local department grocery store. I was looking at the new mask, since the nice one I had went missing. I was at the hospital giving birth recently. I was squatting down when I saw a tiny pair of polka-dotted rain boots. Then I hear, "Excuse me, ma'am, where are the gloves?" I looked up to see this adorable little girl. She had blonde pigtails, probably about 5 years old. She was holding her daddy's hand and smiling. Her dad quickly apologized, and he explained to his daughter that I didn't work there. She looked embarrassed at me, so I quickly told her that she had beautiful manners, and I wish I could help her. Her dad apologized again, and I told him not to worry about it, that his daughter was really sweet. As they were walking away, she looked back at me and told me thank you and to have a good night. Not only was this girl stinking cute, but she was so polite. If I'm ever going to be mistaken as an employee, I'm glad it was her. That's also a big shout out to her parents for teaching her amazing manners and how to properly ask for assistance. I was in Walmart, wearing a fedora and a dirty fluffy coat, and the guy asked me where the macaroni is. I turned around with a look on my face, with a bottle of soda in one hand, and just stared like, what? And he goes, "Oh, you don't work here." I looked down at my outfit and I said, "Nope." "Oh, sorry." No problem." Then I looked up at him and I said, "I'm pretty sure it's down aisle 13. Well, we part ways. I start walking to the register, and I hear him yell, "I found macaroni on 13! Thank you!" I chuckled and I continue. That was kind of a satisfying experience. Thanks for joining me for the I Don't Work Here Lady. I wanted to include the last two stories because it's nice. And to be honest with you, if you find someone irate, if they're just asking you where something is, and even if they seem irritated, me personally, I still want to be nice because they're probably having a terrible day. They're probably not a bad person. I've read quite a few stories where someone just being nice really meant a lot and helped change a person's day. Not allowing yourself to be abused though, and I'm actually quite proud of the first woman. I think she handled it appropriately. I had to do stuff like that when I worked in security. Just treat people with respect. Treat them like a human. Most people are pretty decent. Although I didn't work on the checkout line, that might be quite a bit different. I have heard some horror stories. But regardless, you don't know the struggles that they go through. That doesn't give them the right to be jerks, in no way. But small things can make a huge impact, honestly. The more you know. Okay, I'll stop with that PSA. Thank you again for listening. I'm going to give a special thanks to my patrons. Your help is greatly appreciated. Hope you guys have a good day. And until next time, this is Dallas, signing off.